My neighbor asked me not to host a small memorial in my backyard for my late mother, saying it was too loud. I did it anyway. The next day, the memorial bench was smashed, and the flowers were burned. She looked over the fence and whispered, "The dead don't need attention." I turned away until I noticed her son wearing my mother's cross pendant, and when I demanded it back. I never thought I'd come back to Olympia, Washington, but when Mom got sick, I didn't have much of a choice. She needed someone. And I couldn't let her die alone in that house she spent her life in. So I packed up my apartment in Spokane, quit my job, and moved back into my childhood home. The house hadn't changed much. Same creaky front steps, same kitchen tiles she'd always meant to replace but never did. The backyard was still her favorite place. She'd sit out there under the oak tree with her knitting needles or a book and a glass of iced tea. Even when the cancer got bad, she asked to be wheeled out there. After she passed, I was wrecked. I didn't cry much in front of people, but I couldn't breathe in that house sometimes. I'd go out back, sit under that tree, and talk to her like she was still there. That place meant something to her. It means something to me now. So, a couple months later, I decided to do something small. A memorial. Nothing fancy. I built a wooden bench myself, took me a weekend. Sanded it, stained it, carved her name and favorite quote into the backrest. "You're doing better than you think." I ordered flowers, sunflowers and white roses. I printed a photo of her smiling, from before she got sick, and put it on a small table with candles and her favorite mug. I invited a few family members, some of her old friends. We weren't loud. No music. Just memories and quiet laughter. The kind of soft, sad joy that comes when people talk about someone they love. Everything was fine until I saw Patricia. She's the woman who lives next door. Early 50s, thin like a stick, hair always pulled tight. She's lived there for years, but we never really talked. Even when I was a kid, she kept to herself. My mom said she was wound too tight, and to stay away. Anyway, about halfway through the memorial, my cousin nudged me. I looked over and saw Patricia standing behind her sliding glass door, arms crossed, watching us like we were criminals. I ignored her. Later that night, when most people had left, and I was blowing out candles, she came outside. Walked right up to the wooden fence and called my name. "You should have told me about this," she said. "It was disruptive." I looked at her. "It was a memorial." "It was loud," she said. "People were laughing." "It's disrespectful." "To who?" "To the living," she said. "The dead don't need attention." She just stared at me, then walked away. I didn't sleep well that night. Her words kept echoing. I wanted to scream at her, but what would it change? She wasn't worth the energy. The next morning, I went out to the backyard to clean up. And everything was ruined. The bench I built with my own hands was smashed into pieces. Broken clean through like someone had taken a bat to it. The flowers were gone, burned. Scorched black stems stuck out of the ground. The photo? Gone. Candles shattered. I just stood there for a long time. I didn't cry. I felt sick. Like someone had kicked me in the stomach. I knew it was her. But I couldn't prove it. I took photos. Filed a police report. Officer said unless I had camera footage or saw her do it, they couldn't press charges. I didn't have cameras. I never needed them before. That same afternoon, I sat on the back steps and tried to calm myself. That's when I saw Wyatt, her son. He was walking up their driveway, backpack on one shoulder, hoodie halfway unzipped. He's 17, maybe 18. Doesn't talk much. I watched him walk, and something caught the light. A gold chain. I looked closer. It was the cross. My mom's cross pendant. I knew it instantly. It had a small scratch on the back and a clasp that stuck slightly. She wore it every day for 30 years. I kept it on the photo stand during the memorial. I stood up and stepped to the fence. "Wyatt." He stopped, looked over, didn't say anything. Where did you get that necklace? He touched it. I found it. That belonged to my mother. He shrugged. Well, I found it. I want it back. He turned and walked inside. I stormed to their front door and knocked hard. Patricia answered. I didn't even give her a second to speak. Your son is wearing my mother's pendant. It was in my yard during the memorial. It's not his. She didn't flinch. He found it. It's his now. It's not a toy. That necklace is all I have left of her. You should have taken better care of it. Then she slammed the door. I stared at it for a while. I could have kicked it in. I wanted to. But I walked home. That night I didn't sleep. I paced. I thought about that bench. About those ashes where the roses had been. I thought about that necklace, around the neck of that smug little punk. She took something sacred from me. And now I was going to take everything she cared about, slowly. I didn't want to hurt her. Not physically. I wanted her to feel it. The kind of pain that eats away at your comfort and keeps you up at night. I wanted her to dread every morning. And I knew just how to start. I started with small things. Things she wouldn't notice right away. I wasn't looking for quick payback. I wanted to make her feel what it was like to be chipped away at, slow, quiet, and deep. First, I bought 2 cheap trail cameras off Craigslist. I hid one in my shed and one in the oak tree, aimed right at the fence line. I wasn't going to get caught off guard again. Then I made some calls. I knew Patricia was always bragging about how her HOA position gave her pull with the neighborhood board. I also knew she ran a little cleaning service on the side. Just a few private clients, she'd once told my mom. Well, turns out that little side gig was under the table. No license, no taxes, no insurance. I found out because I contacted a couple people in town who'd hired her. They didn't even know she was operating without business permits. So I wrote up an anonymous letter and mailed it, one to the city, one to the IRS. I even included photos of her car parked at her client homes on weekdays. I waited. It wouldn't destroy her right away, but the clock had started ticking. While that played out, I kept watching. Wyatt still wore the pendant. Every day. And every day I pictured it getting heavier around his neck. I didn't yell. I didn't demand it again. I wanted him to get used to it, so used to it that he'd forget it didn't belong to him. So that when I took it back it'd hurt. 2 weeks after the memorial, I caught Patricia cutting through my front lawn. Not walking on the sidewalk, cutting through the grass like it was hers. I stepped outside and said, "You're trespassing." She looked at me like I was a bug under her shoe. "You gonna cry about your little bench again?" I stared at her. "No. But you will." She laughed. "That a threat?" "It's a promise." She walked off, but slower this time. That same day, I posted a message in the neighborhood Facebook group under a fake account. Said I was a neighbor looking for cleaning services and asked if anyone had hired Patricia Geller. Within hours, people were posting horror stories, things she'd stolen, times she didn't show up, when she screamed at a client's kid. Apparently, I wasn't the only one she'd pissed off. Her clients started dropping her one by one. 3 days later, I watched her haul a box of cleaning supplies to the trash. The next week, Wyatt got suspended from school. I heard the shouting through the wall. We live close enough that I didn't need to try hard to hear it. Something about him shoving another kid in the hallway. Probably had to do with the necklace. It made sense. It wasn't his. Maybe it was burning on his skin. That night, I saw him storm outside and toss his backpack on the porch. I saw Patricia come out and start yelling. He yelled back. Then he yanked the necklace off his neck and threw it into the bushes. I waited until dark. Then I slipped into their yard, found the cross, and took it back. I stood in my kitchen and stared at it for a long time. I should have felt peace. But I didn't. Not yet. Because there was still one more thing I needed to do. I had the pendant back. I cleaned it, held it in my hand, even slept with it under my pillow that night. But the peace I thought it would bring didn't come. The more I looked at Patricia's house, the more I realized this wasn't over. Not even close. Because the truth was, it had never been about the necklace. It was about what she did to my mom's memory. What she tried to erase. And how she acted like none of it mattered. A week after I got the pendant back, things started to spiral, for her. First, the HOA. She'd always used her role to bully people, barking about noise violations, trash bins being left out too long, grass too high. She fined an old veteran down the street once because he painted his mailbox blue instead of the approved shade of gray. So, I started collecting stories. I went door to door on my block, told people I was putting together a complaint letter about Patricia's abuse of authority. I kept it simple, respectful. People opened up fast. Turns out she'd been threatening folks with fake fines and making up rules that weren't even in the HOA bylaws. I got 10 signatures in 2 days. I sent it straight to the HOA board and CC'd the city council. By the end of the month, she was removed from her position. No warning, no hearing. Just an email saying her services were no longer needed. She didn't come outside for 3 days after that. But here's where it got weird. And personal. One night I was out back, watering what was left of the garden, when I saw a light flick on in her upstairs window. I turned away, but something caught my eye. A figure behind the curtain. Not hers. Too tall. It was Wyatt. But he wasn't just standing there. He was staring. Right at me. The next morning, I found footprints by my fence. Deep ones. Like someone had been pacing. And when I checked my backyard camera, the one I hid in the oak tree, I saw it. Wyatt. At 2:43 a.m. walking the edge of the fence. Pausing. Looking over. Holding something. I zoomed in. It was a hammer. He didn't come in. But he wanted to. I saved the footage. Didn't go to the police. Not yet. Instead, I went to his school. I asked to speak with the guidance counselor. Told her I was a concerned neighbor. I said I'd seen Wyatt acting strangely. That he'd been out late, possibly destroying property. That I was worried he might be heading towards something worse. She nodded slowly, and told me they'd been keeping an eye on him too. That he'd had some recent issues. That his father wasn't around. That he didn't talk to anyone. And I told her. He needs help. Before he does something he can't take back. I left it at that. I wanted Wyatt to feel pressure. Eyes on him. Like the world was closing in. And Patricia? She started unraveling. One afternoon, I heard her on the phone outside, yelling loud enough for the whole street to hear. Something about losing clients. Someone reporting her to the IRS. She was shaking. I stood by the fence and waited until she saw me. When our eyes met, I smiled. Then I turned and walked back inside. But that night, something new happened. Someone broke into my shed. They didn't take anything. But they smashed a flower pot I had tucked away, the last one my mom planted. And they carved something into the wooden door. She's gone. Let go. I called the police this time. They filed a report but couldn't do much. No prints, no footage, they missed the camera angle. But I didn't care. Because that message wasn't from a stranger. It was from Patricia. And now she'd crossed the last line. The message on the shed door stayed there for 3 days. I didn't clean it. I wanted to see it every morning, to remind myself that this wasn't grief anymore. This was war. She said my mom was gone. Told me to let go. But Patricia didn't know what holding on really meant. She'd taken something sacred. Then tried to burn it out of my life. Now she'd broken into my shed and left a message like she was doing me a favor. And Wyatt, he wasn't some innocent kid. He'd been creeping in the dark, wearing my mom's necklace like a trophy. It was time to finish this. First, I made sure my cameras were working, and added 2 more. one by the back gate and one hidden in a flower pot near the side of the house. I wasn't just waiting for a break-in anymore. I was setting a trap. Then I made my move. I called Patricia's last remaining client, an older woman who lived on the edge of town. She was still letting Patricia clean her house once a week. I called her, introduced myself, said I was from the HOA, and that Patricia had been under investigation for theft and trespassing. She sounded stunned. "She's been so polite," she said. "Check your jewelry box," I told her. An hour later, the woman called me back. Several things were missing. She called the police. By the next morning, Patricia was being investigated for theft. The woman pressed charges. The cops came to her house, asked questions. I watched from behind the curtain. I could hear her yelling from inside, telling them she was innocent, that it was a lie, that someone was setting her up. But it didn't matter, because her business was gone. Her name was poisoned, and now the law was watching her like a hawk. But I wasn't finished. The last part? That took patience. I contacted a lawyer. Told him I wanted to press charges for trespassing and vandalism. I showed him the shed damage, the photos of the bench, the burned flowers, the footage of Wyatt with a hammer. It wasn't enough for a slam-dunk criminal case, but it was enough for a civil suit. He told me it would cost me. I said I didn't care. So we filed against Patricia and Wyatt. And when they were served the papers, Patricia completely snapped. She came to my door screaming, red-faced, hair messy, shaking. "You think you can take my son to court? Over some stupid flowers? A bench? You're insane!" I didn't say a word, just stared at her. "You're obsessed," she yelled. "You're just sad and lonely and using my family to fill some hole." I finally spoke. "No. I'm doing what you never thought I would. I'm fighting back." Then I shut the door in her face. 3 months later, we went to court. She tried to fight it. Claimed I was harassing her. That I'd made it all up. Her lawyer said I was unstable and grieving and twisting things in my head. But then I played the security footage. Wyatt pacing with the hammer. The photos of the destroyed memorial. The carved message in the shed. The HOA complaints. The stolen pendant. The stolen items from her client. And when her client took the stand and said, "I trusted her, and she took from me," the entire courtroom went quiet. Patricia's face turned to stone. The judge ruled in my favor. She was ordered to pay damages. Not a small amount either. Thousands. She had to sell her car to cover part of it. The rest? Garnished from her wages, which, at that point, were gone. No one would hire her to clean after what happened. She tried to take on a retail job, but her name was already mud. Everyone in town knew. As for Wyatt, he was sentenced to community service. But worse than that, he was forced to stand in front of the court and return the pendant, officially, with an apology. He said it through gritted teeth. Couldn't even look at me. I took it back. Held it in my hand. In the courtroom. Right in front of Patricia. Then I looked her in the eye and said loud enough for the judge to hear. "She's not gone. She's right here. And you don't get to erase her." After that, Patricia tried to move. Put her house up for sale. But no one would buy it, not with her name on the news, and whispers spreading through the neighborhood like wildfire. I passed her once in the grocery store months later. She looked older. Eyes sunken. Hair dyed badly. She didn't speak. Didn't even raise her head. I just walked past her. Smiling. Not because I won. But because my mom had always said, "People will show you who they are. Let them." Patricia showed me exactly who she was. And I made sure everyone else saw it too.